guys, thanks for joining us again this week. We're excited to bring you another industry professional. This week, our professional is in the music industry and he's out of Nashville. So we can't wait to get started. So let's hop to it. Thank you so much for being with us, Bill.
Thanks for having me, April.
Yeah, could you take just a few minutes and tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're from?
Sure. My name is Bill Cracknell. I'm a tour and production manager in the music business. I live in Nashville now. I'm not really from anywhere. I was the eldest son of a career military officer, so I've been an itinerant my whole life. But I moved here 15 years ago, and I've been here ever since. Yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, so I've been in the business about 40 years, been a tour manager for about 30. Wide range of acts, rock acts like Hart and Marilyn Mason, R&B acts like Toni Braxton, Blackstreet, pop acts like Hanson. And then the last 5 years, I've been working in country with Vince Gill and then currently with Chris Young.
Wow. I mean, that is quite a resume of people that you have worked with. That's exciting.
It's a lot bigger. We take the whole time if I went through all of them, but
so could you tell us a little bit about what your duties, your responsibilities are as a tour manager? What does that look like?
Well, I can tell you mine. Tour manager specifically, there's a lot of definitions to it. It depends on who you're working for. I'm a full-on tour manager, what I call a real tour manager. Is that I run the touring operation. There's a lot of planning involved, obviously, for a tour between staffing and equipment procurement and transportation and travel and a lot of logistics. And I oversee all of that with a sizable staff, of course. I mean, my current tour, we carry about 60 people. And you're the top of that food chain, basically. And yeah, it's, did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, again, any one of these things I could go on for hours about if I really needed to get into detail, but
yeah, no,
I'm sure you'll get the relevant details from me. So go.
So when you talk about all of the details that go into tour management, I'm sure there's some very small details. Obviously, there's some big details. But what exactly are you planning out? Do you plan where they stay, what they eat? What all's involved with that?
Well, between me and my staff, all of that. I mean, we don't book the tours. The booking agent does that and routes the tours. And then at some point, I'm just given a sheet. This is where you're going. This is when you need to be there. And then we take it from there. And I'll staff up adequately for whatever the particular tour is. And then we'll do advances. We'll reach out to everybody on the whole tour between myself, the production manager. I'm a production manager too, but on this one, I'm just a tour manager. We have a production manager. And then I have a production assistant who's basically an office manager and handles a lot of the smaller details. And we'll go through months of just planning and plotting and dealing with travel agents to get hotels and any flights that may need booking equipment with the various audio, lighting, video vendors, trucking vendors, busing vendors, and just try to have all that done through a very precise process, working together as a team and having it ready to go when it's time to leave. And then once we go out, it's long days. This isn't a life for everybody. It's in your blood or it's not. But it's 17-hour days. We pull into an arena and we start work at 8 o'clock in the morning, unloading trucks, unpacking stuff, getting everything in the air, putting it all together. This tour, we have 7 trucks, which is a decent sized tour, to have it all ready to go so that, we open up, do the show. And then that night we take it all down, put it back in the cases, put it back in the trucks, and move several hundred miles through the night to do it all again the next day. But we start at 8 in the morning. We finish about 2 in the morning. So it's a 16 or 17-hour day, and there are no shifts. Everybody's on. Everybody's on the whole time.
All day, every day.
It's not easy, but if it's in your blood, it's not work. Just like any true career path.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that for this, you are the tour manager, but you also are a production manager. Could you explain the differences between those two roles?
Well, again, broadly speaking, on the tour manager, you're responsible for the business, and moving everybody around, and staffing, and just running the operation overall. Whereas the production manager is in charge of the production itself, everything that has to do with the show day, and handling labor, because we carry, as I say, 60 people, but through the union we'll pick up another 60 or so in each city, to flesh out the workforce for the day. So he runs that and does the scheduling, how things work, because there's an order to it, how things come out of the trucks and go up into the air. So it's a real workflow to it. You got to do it in the right order so that it's efficient and works properly. And so, yeah, the technical end of things and the show running end of things is the production manager, and the tour manager runs the overall operation.
Okay, yeah. So you mentioned you have a long line of artists that you've worked with, and I'm sure you didn't always start out as the man in charge. So could you tell us a little bit about your journey of, after high school? What did that look like? How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I was in high school in the mid-late 70s. It was, so things were a lot different back then. Just out of high school, at first I was a musician, and I was a touring musician. That's what I thought I wanted to be. But as I got into my late 20s or so, it wasn't doing it for me. And I'd always been fascinated with the mechanics of touring. Even when I was a kid, I got that from my father, the love of the circus. And the circus was really what invented what we do, going all the way back to the 1800s. And just the army, just moving that city, and getting it up every day. I mean, when I was 7 years old and the carnival would come to town, I never cared about riding the rides. I like to get down early in the morning and watch them, put it all together, and it just fascinated me. So as a musician, I gained saw how things were happening around me. I'd go to shows in the 70s, at the arenas, and I'd always be the first one in line. I just like to sit behind the stage and watch all this stuff happen. I got out of playing, and a friend of mine worked for an old rock band called Molly Hatchet. They needed a guitar tech, and a guitar tech is a guy on the crew who takes care of the guitars and takes care of guitar amps and things of that nature. And I knew something about those things because I'd been a musician, so it sounded like a lark. I went out and tried that, and I fell in love with it, and just started there. I mean, and that was 30 some odd years ago, I guess. And it didn't take me long. I had my first tour manager job a couple of years later. It wasn't at this level, it was with working in bars basically, mainly, but, and the journey just went from there, it just, moved up and up and up and up and kept going. And, I always kind of thought it would be me just something to do for a lark until I figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I'm 61 and still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, I guess. I don't know, but
hey, that's okay.
It was pretty organic. It was pretty organic. There was no long range plan or anything. I just followed my heart, which I think everybody should do, no matter what you decide to do with your life. You can't go wrong if you do that. So.
Yeah. One thing that's so interesting is since I've graduated high school many moons ago, I've discovered all of these new opportunities, these new careers that I had no idea even existed when I was in high school. I mean, just a few minutes ago, you mentioned a guitar tech. I didn't even know that was a thing. Yeah. So could you maybe talk a little bit about the other careers that are out there that maybe you didn't realize existed, or behind the scenes that maybe high school students don't typically know about that are available?
Well, again, I mean, as it relates to my business, which is, the only one I would even consider advising a person on, there are a lot. Again, when I started, the word roadie was just kind of a catch-all, and if you had a strong back and a sense of adventure, you could probably find a path to go do that. Things have changed a lot now. There's a lot more science to it. Everything's digital now. There's a lot of computers, and you really have to have more of a skill set going into it than you did back then. But it's a lot more than just the technical end of things. I mean, sure, audio, video, lighting, all important. But there's also, I mean, we use designers, stylists, chefs and nutritionists on the tour. Decorators that that dress the rooms every day, accountants. I'm a tour accountant too, but some tours just carry strictly a tour accountant. Office managers, VIP hospitality coordinators, retail sellers. We carry all that with us. Riggers and climbers, of course, very important. Security specialists, personal trainers, and lots of drivers. I mean, even if you're a bus and truck driver, if you want to work in our business, there's room for you. So, there are a lot of opportunities in this business for people that have skill sets that they may not realize that they could still, do that. I mean, personal trainer can work at the YMCA. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of us use them on tours, and they come out and they go on the road and they do their work and still get to, ride the train. So
that's so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we really carry a small city. We have to be as self-sufficient as possible. Mm-hmm. So virtually everything that people need on a day-to-day life, we bring with us, because that's the way to get consistency to it.
Yeah. So my next question, I guess, kind of leading off that is, are there roles that are available to students that maybe college isn't for them? A lot of these roles that you mentioned, do they need specific training? Do they need to go to college? What would be the path to get to, working on one of these tours?
Well, college, I mean, again, when I started, that just wasn't even an option, Mm-hmm. And I mean, something like a resource even like this coming to you through your high school, this isn't just something respectable people did. So it was never really an option. And again, I remember when I graduated high school, I was pretty smart, and had opportunities to go to some very good schools. I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to go out in the world. And I remember a good friend of mine, we were out riding around one summer after graduation. He was getting ready to head off to law school, and just lectured me, said, "Why are you wasting your life? You should be going to college and building a career." I said, "This is what I want to do." And he just really thought I was wasting my life. And fast forward 2 decades, my 20th high school reunion, I saw him and a lot of people that had left school and done what, chased money or done what other people thought they should do. And I hadn't been in touch with these people in a long time because I'd left that area. And it was really shocking to me to see, I mean, we hadn't even reached 40 yet. And so many of these people just look like they're already worn down by their life. And that's when it really realized that, like I said, following your heart, I said, I'd made the right decision. So, to answer your question, college isn't necessary. Mm-hmm. I don't know of anybody in my business that requires it. When I'm hiring someone, I don't even ask them if they went to college. So no, it's not required. But there are some great programs in colleges today. I mean, Belmont University here in Nashville has a great music touring, music production program. There's some others around the country. Where if that's a route you want to take, there are great opportunities. They have facilities and you can learn those skills hands-on. There are internships available. I know like a lot of the lighting and audio vendors around here honor internships from Belmont, and they have job placement programs. And it's a great opportunity for networking too, of course, and these schools will have shows, usually do concerts, and you can work as stagehands at these things. So there's some great paths for college. And at that age, it gives you a chance to figure out too, if this is something you really want to do before you commit to running away with a circus. But it's not remotely necessary, no. And it's not the degree itself. Even today, I don't think benefits somebody if they want to work on a tour too much. It's the experience that can, because experience is far more important than college. That's what I care about. If I'm hiring a young person and they tell me they've got the degree from Belmont, I'll say, "Oh, okay, but what have you done?" And someone the same age that's done 3 or 4 years on the road, I'll usually take them.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because experience is key. And that's one thing we really strive to help high school students understand is even when you're still in high school, there are things that you can do now to prepare you for your high school. You don't have, or after high school, you don't have to wait. And so that's a great lead in to my next question, which is, if there's students out there that are interested in this career path, what is something that they could still do while they're 16, 17 years old that could help them prepare and maybe potentially get that experience?
Well, I'd say get involved in programs at school. I mean, hopefully they have access to that. Sadly, the arts aren't covered in high school as much as they used to be. But if you have a theatrical department, I mean, to take volunteer in there, and you can learn some lighting, some sound stuff, set decoration, carpentry, things of that nature. Even like an audio-visual department, you can learn skills there. Everybody in high school has a buddy with a band, that's in a band. Go help them with their gear, move things around, maybe run the operation for them, help them find jobs, go out. And I mean, that's a great way to just really just get your foot in the door on stuff like that. And if you do go to college, again, all that stuff's available in pretty much any college still. And as I said, the most student unions will put shows on every year, volunteer on that. Or in high school, again, like county fairs, state fairs, if you're in that area, they all do big concerts, and they tend to rely on volunteers as stagehands. So, and that's a great networking opportunity because you see these tours coming through, and if you impress someone, don't try too hard, but it's just a great way to learn, a great way to meet people and meet other people your age that are in the same position as you are with the same aspirations. That buddy next to you probably can't get you a job right out of school, but 10 years down the road, he may be in a position. And, even now when I'm hiring somebody, I always start, if I can, with somebody that I know, before I'll start looking for strangers. So the networking part is critical.
Absolutely. Yeah, networking is so key in any career path that you choose, because, we always hear the old saying, you got to know someone. And that's not always 1,000% true, but a lot of times, the more people the more opportunities you're going to be aware of.
You got two people up for a job with the same skill set, and one of them has at least a familiarity and maybe a history with the person that's hiring. That's the guy who's going to get hired. Oh, yeah. When I say guy, I mean guy or girl. Hey guys, that's just a catch all for me. So
I totally understand. Okay. So one of the other things that you mentioned is volunteer. I think that's so important because a lot of times, young people might think that, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not getting paid. But a lot of times to be able to build your experience, you may have to do the jobs that you don't get paid for.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And again, going back to what I said, if this has got to be in your blood to do it, it's just too hard otherwise. If you got somebody at that age that doesn't want to do something because they're not getting paid for it, it's probably not the line of work for you. It's just, you got to get in there and want to roll your sleeves up. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just may not be their, I always, as you said, I think it's always good to throw in and just learn something, especially at that age. You don't know what you want to do for the most part. Even if you think you do, you don't. And you need to find out. But in this line of work, especially, you really want somebody who wants to get in there and roll their sleeves up and not worry about that. And if you just follow that passion, the money will come. I've my entire adult life, I've loved doing what I do. I could put everything I owned in the back seat of my car until I was, almost 40 years old. And I never even thought about it. I didn't care because I was doing what I wanted to do. But over time, the money came, and now I make a very good living. And that's great, but it's not why I do it. And that's the litmus test right there, I think, is if the money is the most important thing, you're probably going to wind up miserable anyway, no matter what you do, frankly. But you're not going to last long in this business. It's just too grueling.
That is so true. So you mentioned earlier that you're also the tour accountant. Could you kind of go over what that looks like as far as, a lot of times when we think about accountants, we think about taxes or corporate accounting. How is tour accounting different, and what does that job entail?
Well, it's a title. I'm not an accountant per se. I don't do anybody's taxes. I don't even do my own anymore. It's I guess a glorified bookkeeper of sorts. But it's you handle the money on the road, and disbursements and collecting receipts. The big thing a tour accountant does is settle the show, because again, you're in and out every day. You don't have time to sit around and be closing the business, for days on end after the show's over. And the bigger tours, I mean, we're processing 20,000 customers a day. There's a lot of money coming in. There's a lot of money going out because it's not cheap. So the tour accountant with the local promoter, will sit down and go through the cost, because it's a show is a partnership of sorts. Is we basically get a chunk of all the money that's brought in. But we have to allow for the expenses first, and then we split the proceeds with the promoter. And, I need to make sure the promoter's, keeping his nose clean and everything. And so, we account all the costs, everything. And throughout the course of the day, we'll compile costs and put them together, compile receipts from the box office, verify everything, so that by the time we're pulling out at 2:00, we've accounted for all that, and we've settled on, this is how much you owe me, pay me so I can leave. So that's what it is, just managing the money out there, but mostly just maximizing the revenue for everybody, ideally. I mean, to me, it's the win-win is what I'm after. Not everybody in my business sees it that way. But that's how you get longevity, trying to help everybody out at the same time.
Yes. So we do have a few questions from students. And the first question I have is, do you attend every single concert, and do you get to actually watch the concerts?
Well, yeah, I mean, all the shows, I have to be, we all are. That's my job, to be boots on the ground, make sure it's running smoothly. It's not too often I get to watch the entire show. I'll go out at the beginning, which is my favorite part of the day. I'll escort the artist to the stage, get them in position to start during the intermission. And then I'll immediately go out front, get about 15 or 20 rows deep, and just stand with people out there while they're sitting there drinking their cocktails or kibitzing, And then the stage manager will call house lights. The lights go out, it goes dark, and the whole place erupts. Anybody who goes to a concert knows what I'm talking about. And to me, I love that moment, because I know it's coming. And then I wait for it, I count it down, and I see it, and the whole place goes nuts. And then I'll stay out there for a couple of songs, largely to make sure everything's going smoothly, but also just look around me, look at the people enjoying their, and there's a great satisfaction to knowing you had a lot to do with giving all these people that moment. These people all have lives. They all went to work that day. They're all struggling just like we all are. And they drop their money down to come have this experience and escape that all for a couple of hours. And you're providing that for them, and that's a big deal to me. But anyway, I'll watch the first couple shows, and I have to go back and get to work on that tour accounting we were just talking about. And I'll monitor things in my ears. I'll have radio going, and if there's a problem, I'll have to run out and deal with it. But other than that, I'll go out once or twice just to check on things, make my rounds, and then I'll be out at the end to grab the artist and walk him back to the bus. So yeah, the only time I see the whole show is during rehearsals. Other than that, no, I don't.
Yeah. So hearing you talk about that, I mean, that just gives me chills. I can imagine that experience never gets old.
No, it never does. 40 years later, man, I still get a charge out of it. It's great.
And it sounds like it's very fulfilling to be able to experience that and know that you're satisfying so many fans and customers all across the U.S.
Well, it is for me, and I know a lot of people that work in the business feel that way. I mean, that's kind of our payoff moment, because by the time that moment happens, we've already been on the job for 13 hours, a long day. And some days it's hard, if you're in your third day in a row, especially you get to be my age, it's hard. But that moment just, sends a jolt back through you. And it's great. It's great.
So based on what you've said, and the next question from a student, I think this is a great tie-in, is on average, how many days a year are you on tour?
Well, it depends on the tour. I mean, I've had some that I leave my house, on the 1st of April and don't come back until October, and you're gone the whole time. Country touring, which I've only been doing for the last 5 years, is a lot different. It's called weekend warrior touring, and we just go on the weekends. We leave every Wednesday. We'll go to the local Kroger or Walmart, and where we all meet up, get on the bus, and go out and do Thursday, Friday, Saturday shows, and then we're back at the Kroger on Sunday morning and get back in the car and drive home. but all in, I mean, I've had tours where we've done as many as 250 shows a year, Now with this, typically we're 70 or 80 shows a year, so.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of the logistics, there's a lot of scheduling involved. So the next question we have is, what strategies do you use to stay organized?
Well, again, it's changed a lot over the years. When I started, we didn't have any computers, we didn't have cell phones. I didn't even have a fax machine. So a lot of time on landline telephones and sending stuff through the mail. And thinking back, I'm not sure how I did it, honestly, because now it's, I embrace the IT, and IT is critical for keeping everybody informed, working together. Obviously email is king, because you're dealing with people on any given day from all over the world, working on various shows. And then my management team, there are three of us in the production office that are heavily involved with organization. We work together a lot through Google Docs, to keep abreast of. And then there's some specialized software called Master Tour that is just used by people in the touring industry that's specialized to this. It does a lot of syncing, and we can each take care of our responsibilities in here, but see that everybody else is, we can see the whole picture take form without necessarily having to be in the same room together. On tour, we're all in the same room together. When we're home, we're not. Oftentimes, you're in different parts of the country and trying to do this all at once. And then also now with that too, there's a phone app that goes with it, so that everybody on the tour can get the basic information like scheduling and things on their phone. We used to have to do tour books, which before a tour would start, I'd have these printed up in just little spiral books that had every day with the schedule on there and what's happening. And they were notorious for, by the time you're a week into the tour, for being utterly undependable because things change. I mean, nothing. And with this now, we can instantaneously change everybody's data and so they can really see what's going on. So just a lot of IT, and in a nutshell, that's it. But you have to be organized to work in this. I mean, you just do. Everybody on the tour does. I mean, again, if we're carrying 7 tractor trailers of equipment that's flying out of the truck and being thrown together, then has to be packed up and put back in the truck. I mean, every little tiny piece that's in those trucks has a place where it needs to be, and that's where it needs. So you take it from, when you're done, you put it back, place for everything in its place. That goes for material things, and that goes for things in your head too, just getting that routine going. And that can be the biggest challenge for me. And what I strive for more than any is to just try to turn that chaos into routine, to where it's the same. You're going to have curveballs, and you're going to have to deal with intangibles, but the closer you can get to having every day be the same, and as much as that's possible, that's great for morale and, people's confidence. And you need a confident team, because you don't have time. Excuse me. I'm sorry. You don't have time to second guess yourself. So, yeah. Question?
Yes, absolutely.
It was a while ago. I'm not sure I did or not.
That's perfect.
Okay, good.
So we have one last question for you, and that is, based on your extensive experience, what are the biggest differences between managing a rock tour versus managing a country tour?
Well, the fundamentals are the same. I mean, touring is touring. I'm a bit of an anomaly in all these different genres I've worked. Most tour managers everybody that works in the tour tends to find a genre, rock, country, R&B, whatever, and live in that world. Just for whatever reason, I didn't. I just like jumping around. So I have learned what the differences are. They tend to be nuanced, and they tend to be subtle, mostly just with the style of the people and dealing with the people. And that's what it all comes down to, is learning how to deal with the groups of people. And that can be very different. Managing a Marilyn Manson tour is not the same as doing a Chris Young tour.
I can imagine.
On the edges. At its core, it is. Mm-hmm. But on the edges, it's not. And it's just learning to deal with those personality types, especially dealing with artists in particular, which in my role, you know, you've got a closer relationship with the artist than anybody else on the tour. I mean, you're kind of the like the chief of staff to his president, you know, it's to where it's your job to bring that artist's vision to fruition, you know, not your vision, the artist's vision. And in order to do that, you have to have a pretty close personal relationship with them while delineating the personal and the business. And for me, that's the biggest thing is learning how to deal over time, you know, walking in the door and assessing this person and how do you deal with them and earn that trust to where they'll let you in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as far as the fundamentals, I mean, again, country is different than the others just because of the fact we just go out on the weekends. And you know, and it's definitely a more civilized way of doing it. And it's great for a lot of these younger guys that have young children, you know, that can get home to them. That's an advantage I didn't have growing up. I'd leave for months at a time. But beyond that, it's stylistic, really. I mean, it just is. I mean, a lot of the pop tours, the caterers you bring on the road have to be able to do, you know, California nouveau cuisine, whereas in country, they're happy with a plate of ribs and mac and cheese, you know. So it's all little stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, Bill, I have so much enjoyed chatting with you today. I think you've had so much good advice and words of wisdom for our students. So thank you for being with us.
Yep.
Thank you so much to everyone that tuned in. And don't forget, every single week we have a new industry professional. So be sure and check that.